Morning. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, so funny story to start us off. So I struggled to sleep last night, and I think part of it was actually to do with this workshop, because when you run a workshop on a theme like this, I found it very triggering because it's not only saying like, yeah, I'm going to invite people, I'm going to be seen and heard, but you're also saying, and I know exactly how you can be seen and heard. And it just felt like a sort of double whammy of like, bam, can I actually do this? And who am I to talk about this? But then I thought, actually, this is a really, really good lesson for this session, because what happens every time or very often, particularly when you're new to this stuff and it is completely out your comfort zone, and you show up and you put yourself out there in a way that feels a little bit scary, is that you have to kind of bust through some of that self-doubt and that, oh gosh, well, I'm just going to look silly, or I'm just going to look arrogant, or who am I to actually do this? And the way that you do that is through service and through knowing that the reason that you are going to be out there and say what you have to say and put yourself in that kind of vulnerable position of being judged, because you will be judged. There's no other kind of option for you. Where everyone has their own judgment on these things, and that's fine. But you have to really believe that what you have to say is genuinely going to help whoever it is that you want to support. Not everyone, of course, but being very, very clear in your mind of what you have to share and the value of that, and almost like the energy around that has to be enough to make it worth your while, for that trade-off of that kind of horrible, cringy, uncomfortable feel of like, oh, do I really have to do this? I really don't want to, because that, believe it or not, the people that do share and do put themselves out there, they're not all kind of attention-seeking extroverts. They're really not. Very often the main feeling, whatever they put out and however they come across to you, there'll be an underlying sense of, well, who am I to actually say this, and who will actually care? So I just want to start out the session that way, because I think it's really, really normal to feel that and to kind of feel like, oh, well, I'm just one of those people who doesn't share things, and one of those people that doesn't always say what I think. And that's fine to be an introverted person, and that's fine not to share. But if you're listening to this session, there's a reason, and it probably is that there's a connection somewhere that needs to be made between your next embodiment of your career and of your kind of opportunities that are out there for you, and that step of becoming more visible and becoming more recognized, and consequently becoming more respected and credible in your arena. So who's this session for? So it's for senior comms professionals from all different backgrounds. So whether that's agency, whether you're kind of practice director, associate director, whether you're in-house in a senior role, looking out for your next role perhaps, or whether you are kind of working for yourself and growing your own comms business. And the reason that I aim the session at that audience is because that's my background and that's my entire client base. Excuse me. So yeah, so that's who it's for. And also it's based on a lot of experience of working with these kinds of people, because quite often the people that I work with are on some level of the introvert scale. So they love elements of what they do in their work, and they're amazing at it, and they're really, really good at reading people, and they love people, and they love connecting, but they're not always the most kind of outgoing and the most confident person in the room. And they come to me because they either feel like they want some clarity about where their future can take them in the industry, and what their options are. They're looking around thinking, yeah, I've been doing this for a while now, it's time to kind of move on in some way, but I'm not sure what. I'm not sure if I've got the confidence, the skills, all that kind of thing. Or they're just starting to feel a bit kind of overlooked and overwhelmed, or just not really being recognized, overworked as well. Not really being recognized for their skills and expertise, and still kind of somewhere on that kind of doer level, as opposed to being that more strategic, senior sort of thinking level. And quite often they're trying to do both, and that's actually a very difficult place to find yourself, is when you're doing a lot of the doing and you're helping people because you're a helpful person, but you're actually at a point where you need to step back and just elevate to a level of like, yeah, I could do all this myself but I'm not going to, because I know that's not how I will lead. But anyway, that's slightly by the by, because we're really focusing in on this theme of being heard. So I've got 5 points that I want to make. I've kept it really simple with a 5-point format because there's so much to talk about with this topic, and you're a comms expert yourself, so all the ins and outs of what channels are available to you and what types of content. And we're not just talking like social media here either. We're not just talking about LinkedIn, although that's obviously really important at various points in your career, but we're talking about visibility in your company, in your organization, and how you make that happen through just being seen differently by those around you. And whether it's kind of running things and presenting things, or whether it's networking and maybe it's to do with attracting new business into your agency. There are so many different ways that we can be seen, and we can kind of focus our attention on growing our profile. So just to say that up front, this is not going to be a sort of how to do LinkedIn type session, although the stuff that I'll talk about will be the absolute basis for how you then go and apply it in whatever forum you decide to. Oh, croaky voice this morning. Must be I'm running this at 8:30 if you're watching the replay, and I think maybe that's a little bit early for my vocal cords. There you go. I also, dressed up really nicely for you for the session this morning, and then Jim, my partner, goes to me, "Oh, you look like a Blue Peter presenter." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." Well, I guess I'll take that. I think I kind of do in this jumper, but anyway. So what are these 5 things? What are these 5 points to share with you about kind of raising your profile and being seen in the industry? So the first one to know, number 1, is that you are already an expert. So take that in for a minute and soak it up. So we're not talking about you needing to research or study or grow your knowledge in any particular area so that you can then kind of go out there and be this almost like academic type figure, sharing research papers and writing theses on this kind of thing. Actually, your career and your life itself is the perfect content and the perfect basis for what you have to share. So the most powerful things that you can share are actually things that you deeply know and understand. And you might think, oh, well, everyone at my level gets this, or everyone this stuff's obvious, or it's the easy stuff that I know. But actually that's not the case. Like, even let's say an account executive in a PR agency has expertise in something that their clients, so let's say their in-house comms director would be interested in. And that's not because the account executive knows everything, but they are on the phone day in, day out to the media, and that client's PR manager probably doesn't do that anymore. They probably did at one point, that they probably would really love some kind of fresh insights from someone that really is doing this right now. So do you see what I mean? It's like, you're not going to wait until you're 60 and you've learned everything about an industry or a role to start actually sharing your expertise, because you know stuff and you can remind people of stuff, and stuff is such a great term, isn't it? You know, technical term. But yeah, so really soak that in, that you are already an expert. And then just take a couple of minutes now, if you've got pen and paper to hand, to just write down like 3 areas where you're already an expert. And you can be as specific or as general as you like. But yeah, just take a couple of minutes now. I'll just go silent for a minute to give you a bit of thinking time. And preferably pick things that you're interested in. It sounds obvious, but we pick up a lot of skills that we're not necessarily so interested in, you know, just by default. So pick the ones that you actually like exploring and talking about. And then when you've got your 3, just take a look at them and just feel into maybe a couple of recent examples or something that backs this up for you, so that you're not just kind of feeling it, you're also proving it. So see what you've got and think, yeah, I did that project, or I learned so much from that. I could really talk all day about that if I had to. And those are the ones that immediately you can start being seen and heard about, because they're not only your areas of expertise, they'll be areas where your passion lies. So that's so crucial as a starting point, because we all get this kind of imposter syndrome around, well, what, I haven't got anything new to say, there's already so much out there about this, you know, I'm going to look silly, whatever it is. No one's asking you to have written a book on the areas that you work on and go out there and share that. Although if you want to write a book, then go for it, because coincidentally, quite a few of my PR clients, my coaching clients, really are just drawn to becoming authors. And not necessarily in the field of comms at all, but you know, fiction of all kind, factual stuff. Like, you know, we love to write, a lot of us. So if that's coming up for you as well, it's like, I'm an expert on this, or, you know, I love this and I could talk about this all day. Don't ignore that completely. It may not kind of directly feed into your next step in your comms career, but something inside you is saying, I want to be seen and heard about this. So that's it's not even an aside really, it's just observing and listening to your true areas that you really want to share and discuss. I'm going to move on to, you know, we'll come back to some of these as we go anyway. So the second point to know when you want to become more visible in your comms career is, don't need to be seen and heard by everyone. Yes, this can be so liberating, and it does involve a certain amount of clarity around what you actually want, but just knowing that actually, let's use LinkedIn as an example, because it's just such an obvious context where there's a lot of people on there, and you know, you'll have a lot of connections, like maybe old uni friends and alongside like old colleagues and your current boss, and you know, they're all on there, and you might feel like if you do post something that, oh yeah, their eyes are on you and they're like, why is Amy talking about that, or God, that's so boring, like I'm so not interested in that. So it's like, it's setting that aside and going, well, who do I actually want to talk about? Who would be interested in my areas of expertise? And it's writing for them, whatever the forum, whatever the context, there will be people that won't be interested, and that is absolutely fine. You're not interested in helping them really, because they've got other things, and particularly on social media, it's just a simple scroll. Okay, that's not for me. No one's going to make a judgment about you for sharing something. They're just going to scroll on. They're just going to scroll on, and that is absolutely fine. So you don't need to be seen and heard by everyone. And it's really, really important to think strategically about who you do want to be seen and heard by. But I'm going to come back to that, because that is kind of the real kind of critical piece of this whole picture, and it's going to kind of really get the ball rolling for you on this. But I just wanted to put that out there up front, because I think we get really distracted by what our partner or our friends or whoever else is in our world might think of what we're sharing, whereas actually it's okay if they're not interested. It really is. And the funny thing is, what you'll find and what I've found is sometimes I've used like personal social media channels to share things for my very specific senior comms professional audience, and then I've had friends say, oh, that was really inspiring or really useful, or so you kind of get bonus points in terms of who else is going to see this stuff, and like maybe your mum will see it and be like, oh, it was really nice to find out what you're actually working on, and gives them a little bit of whatever's pride or satisfaction as well. So yeah, I think that just, I'm putting that out there up front so we can move on to our next points. The next thing I've written is really profound. Let's see if I can explain this one to you. So it's, your deepest desires are being manifested through the process of sharing. What does that mean? Very juicy. So your deepest desires are being manifested through the process of sharing. And as I've come to set up my coaching business and market it, because that's what I'm doing when I'm talking about my views and doing things like this, as well as kind of supporting people and sharing what I genuinely believe in, I come to see how valuable being visible really is. And it's not just when you're setting up a business, it applies in any context. When you have a goal of some kind, when you have a vision of what you want for yourself, and it's uncomfortable, or it can feel uncomfortable, but it really is a part of the, I'm going to say, manifestation process. Whether or not you kind of buy into that side of things is totally up to you, but the way that you can make changes in your world in terms of how others see you is going to be through sharing. And it's just the two are so interconnected. The more we are consumers of what's out there, and that's kind of like a passive thing, right? So you consume when you read other people's articles, and you consume when you sit back in a meeting and listen and take notes, and you consume when you host an interview, or ask questions, that kind of thing. But you create when the consuming is like a passive thing. And yes, it's important because it's kind of helping you learn and grow and listen and connect, but it's only half the story. The other half is this creative process. So you can't really have authority, and you can't really inspire others, and you can't really be a leader when you're not creating and sharing and putting things of all kinds out into the world. And that then has consequences that you can't even predict or control. Because I mean, you know this because you're a comms person and you do it for your spokespeople, but if you put out like an opinion article, let's go really basic, from a CEO, you don't know what the impact of that's going to be, but you know it's important because you know that that visibility piece is going to support the organization and the individual to be seen as an expert. So you get this stuff already, but you just quite possibly haven't applied it to the context of your own career. So you might then be invited to speak on a panel about this, or, you know, that's kind of a stretch example for a lot of people, but it's really not beyond the realms of possibility. So really commit to this journey of sharing more. You can start really, really gently, and it could just be, you know, you sit down with your manager and just tell them what you're into and tell them what you want next from your career. And that's a form of sharing, and that's a form of being heard and seen, right? And if you hadn't asked for that meeting, and if you hadn't prioritized talking about yourself instead of talking about the company or talking about them, because everyone likes, you know, a bit of limelight, don't they? You know, you wouldn't be able to open those doors. So it really is a way of opening doors. And you get it. I know you get it. So you don't always know where those doors are going to go. And it's really, really fun to find out. That's the thing, is once you start sharing, people start connecting with you in a different way because they see more of you. And yeah, I'm talking about like sharing from your personal world too, and sharing who you really are and what you're into, and just being very authentic about the whole experience. Because when people can sense, right, they can sense what is coming from a place of genuine authenticity versus what is the kind of almost like robotic, let's say LinkedIn post about, oh, we got some great coverage this week. Like, no, that's fine, you know, you can do that as well, but what were the real challenges? What did you feel going through that journey? What was going on in your world while that was happening? Like, what did you learn? You know, that's the juicy kind of meaty material that really does connect you to people when you share that kind of thing. So it's not, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm talking about going a bit deeper than that surface level. Let's share our wins, which, you know, we all get taught to do in this industry. And it's like, oh yes, let's politely clap one another while we, you know, move on to the next thing really quickly. But actually, you know, what did you go through? What have you been through? And you'll have seen a lot of this stuff as well coming out over the last couple of years from people. And I'm sure you'll have read it and been interested and respected those people that did share. Do you know what? This is the experience of a single mum during a pandemic. This is what it was like for me. And she's not doing that for sympathy. She's not doing that, you know, she doesn't want sympathy. That's the last thing she wants. She's doing that because she knows that if an MD reads that, they really are going to see, okay, I need to support that single mum in my business much better. And that is amazing that she's been able to be brave enough to share something like that and have an impact that she won't necessarily know about, you know. But yeah, from her point of view as well, it's like what might manifest from there is a role where she has the right level of flexibility because people know her story, they know what she's up against. So that kind of manifestation piece of, yeah, do you know, this is where I want to head. This is what I want from this whole process of being seen and heard. I'm not entirely comfortable with being out there in this way, but it's going to be for the benefit of myself and others in the long run. And it's a powerful thing to do. I hope I'm not talking in circles here. I don't think I am, but, you know, just soak in what feels right for you and just let the other stuff wash over you. And then my next point is really interesting. I think this is uncomfortable for a lot of us because we've kind of been brought up in a culture where there's a bit of a sort of herd mentality, and we feel like we're safer if we're not standing out. You know, the same thing as like teenagers all want to dress alike and do the same things as their friends, because there's like that kind of protection factor in like, oh, I don't want to stand out, or I might be picked on. So it's natural to not want to do this. And it's, if you particularly look to the generation a little bit older than us, so our bosses, they don't, a lot of them really don't do this, right? And so you're not going to have encouragement from them, you're not going to have training from them, you're not going to have investment from them to help you with this stuff, unless you're very lucky and you've just got someone that really does get this. So yeah, they really are not, they don't like this. Like, just talk about my dad for a second, if you allow me to. But you know, I told him, I think I was about 25, I was like, oh, Dad, I'm writing a blog on the arts stuff that I like in London. He was like, God, how embarrassing. Like, they find it like really unnecessary and awkward to have views and emotions on display. And you'll see, I feel like so if you're in your like 30s to early 40s, whatever, around there, we're kind of in the middle. And isn't that interesting? Because we've got this generation that came before us that were really anti-sharing and really felt like it was boasting, like that whole, you know, oh, well, if you talk about what you're up to, then, you know, that's just a bit selfish and a bit weird. And then we've got this whole generation of those in their 20s and younger who really get that creating content is fun, and that being visible is just a part of how the modern world works. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're not trying to take over the world. Some of them are, maybe, I don't know, but they know that if they create videos and stuff, that's going to connect them to their communities, and they're really passionate about it, and they just kind of join in a lot more. And we're in the middle, and it's quite a challenging place to be, because we're going to be the bosses of those 20 somethings who are this comes much more naturally to. And if they don't see us as if they don't see the full picture of us, they won't buy into us. So they won't come and work for our business, or they won't, yeah, they won't feel inspired by us. So we won't be their leaders, let's say. So really interesting one is that it's not going to help you to look to your senior managers, your bosses, the generation before us for examples of this. So that's why it is going to feel potentially even more uncomfortable when you do start sharing and being visible and vocal, because some of them will be a bit like, okay, well, I don't get it, and I don't want to do it myself. Do you know what? They will get it when you bring in like an amazing new business lead, because you're the person that's just become known for really being on the pulse with the tech media, for example. And they, you know, when they start to see the commercial result, they will get this, and then they'll be asking you to do training on it and to get everyone else to do it. But until they see that, they won't get it. And I'm just trying to think of another example. So yeah, let's say you are I don't know, I can't think of another one right now, but you know what I mean. You understand that it's not about what they're doing, it's about what's going to be right for you in the longer term in your world, because this won't just bring like opportunities in your work, this is going to bring opportunities in your to change your entire world and the entire way you do things, and it might help you become more comfortable with sharing things with your friends. It's amazing to just set the intention to be more visible and more vocal, and getting comfortable with being vulnerable as well. So having those slightly deeper connections will just evolve naturally in all parts of your world. And it's such a journey that's close to my heart, because I really have been naturally someone that kind of closes off and doesn't want to share, and thinks it's kind of down to other people to talk about me. Imagine that, like, to talk about me and what I'm up to, and you know, promote me and position me in different ways, whereas actually it's really, really not their responsibility. They're not that interested in me. No one is, apart from me. So I've got to really take that on. And same for you, whatever your setup with work is, you have to be interested in your own views and opinions, because who else will be? I don't know if that's a bit of an aside from where we got to, but yeah, I like that point. So this last point is probably the most important one to take away from this session, is actually when you share, you're in service of others. So when you share, you are in service of others. It's not empty-headed, and it never would be with you, because you're kind of intelligent, thoughtful, and you don't just kind of blabbermouth your way through things. So it's actually the most powerful thing you can do at this point, if you're not sure what you want to talk about, what you want to be seen as an expert in, where you want to be seen. If you just like, Amy, I've got no clue on any of this, then just ask yourself, who do I want to help? Who do I want to help? And it's a challenging question, and it's not always easy to answer at first. So I'll kind of talk you through it and give you some examples. But in your world and in your unique perspective of the world, and it's funny, like one person, several people can have the same job and just see what they're doing in completely different ways. So let's say you're a sales manager for Google, and one person could see the purpose of their role as really connected to the team that they work with, and be a real kind of like, just want to inspire the more junior members of the team and bring them together and get the results that way, and just really enjoy that side of what they do. And another person can see the value in what they do as really linking to the product and the end results. So, you know, they imagine this customer that's like a business owner, and the technology that they're selling is going to just really transform how that business owner can work and what they can do in their world, and they're really driven by that. So they're much kind of more external looking. And then another person in the same team with the same job could be like, well, I know that if we sell this product, there'll be less pollution because people will be working remotely, and you know, we'll change the bigger picture in the world. It will create a more sustainable world from this. So yeah, isn't that interesting? And I've seen it time and time again with my coaching sessions, is, you know, similar roles, in-house, PR, whatever it is, and just totally different ways of looking at kind of what they get from that opportunity and who they're focused on supporting. And so it's quite important to learn that about yourself. Is like, where are you really driven by? Is it like the internal culture within a company, or is it to do with who's being supported at the end of the chain, or is it to do with who's being supported just outside the business? So the suppliers, or the kind of, is it about kind of really supporting your boss, who you really believe in, to kind of make better things happen in a company of thousands of people? There are all different levels, all different ways of exploring this, and it might change over time. I'm not saying this is always going to be your focus or always going to be what drives you, but right now where does your interest lie in supporting people? Is it customers? You know, whatever it is, just observe that about yourself. So you might want to take a minute now and just see if anything's coming up from that point around who do you want to help the most, let's say, because, you know, we like to be helpful in this industry. It's a service industry, so we like to help all different kinds of people in all different kinds of ways, but who do you want to help the most? All right, and don't worry if it doesn't come to you right now in this minute. It is a challenging question. There are often layers to kind of explore, and that is always somewhere that I go to with my coaching clients, is really working back through the themes of their lives to identify kind of what the common themes are in terms of who they enjoy being around, and what kind of projects and opportunities and things in their world really brings them satisfaction, because that's always the area where you're going to be most powerful and enjoy the most, basically, is when you're able to focus in on that. So if you're really not a fan of what's happening in the B2B tech world and, you know, the tech side of things, then don't force yourself to write an opinion piece about that because you feel like it's going to tick the box for your boss, and, you know, that's your kind of new business activity, because it won't hit the mark if it's not genuinely connected to who you are, who you want to help, and what you have to say. All right, so those are my 5 top tips for being seen and heard in your comms career. I'll just run through them again really quickly just to give you them. So we've got number 1, you're already an expert. So whenever you feel like something that you're writing or sharing, you need to do some extra research for, or something, is probably a sign that you need to scale it in and just focus back on what you really do know. Because yes, you can be challenged, and that's great, but if it's stuff that you're not factually sure of, or stuff that you feel is kind of not in your zone, then it's really not worth you going away and doing a whole load of research on it, just so you can show up in a way that shows you kind of know what you're saying about it. It's actually much better just to tap into all that amazing experience over the years that you've had. And, you know, people will be fascinated to know about the time when your campaign just really took off, even if it was like 3-4 years ago, and what happened in that case, because it's real and because it happened and because you were there firsthand. All right, and then number 2, you don't need to be heard and seen by everyone. So pick your audience, and this audience should be who you want to help. So that's the really key thing. Whenever I share content myself, I always go to that place of like, right, I envision in my mind exactly who I want to listen to this seminar, and I speak it for them, exactly for them. I speak it for the challenges that they have in their world. I speak to the dreams that I believe they have, and I speak to the backgrounds, the areas of passion, their approach to digesting information, you know, what are all their preferences, and I make it just for that one person. I really do. Because as soon as you start trying to talk to multiple audiences and address multiple preferences, then you just dilute, and people won't connect because they won't find themselves in that. So yeah, be very choosy. Okay, and the third one is your deepest desires are being manifested through the process of sharing. So even if you're not entirely sure what those desires are or where this might go, just testing the water and starting to become that little bit more visible, a little bit more vocal, with your intentions being very true to the support that you're giving and the expertise you're sharing and the joy of kind of knowing you can help someone. A kind of a gradual iteration of an amazing future is going to come to you. I don't say that lightly. That's just how things evolve. And like I say, moving from that passive content consumer state, which is powerless really, to that active, like, okay, I'm going to be there, I'm going to show up, I'm going to talk, I'm going to share. It's just vital. And that's one of the reasons why I actually chose to run this seminar and this theme, is because I feel like at the moment, it's not always the people that have the most integrity in the industry that have the most airtime. And actually that needs to change, because when that changes, the impact on the world is amazing. Like, especially with everything that's going on at the moment, we need really genuine, authentic, and people that are just good and like have good intentions to be the most vocal. Okay, and that's you. Your bosses and culture don't support this approach, so you're in that kind of middle zone of like, yeah, I'm not a natural content creator, but I'm not completely like, this doesn't completely repulse me as a way of doing things. I'm curious, I'm interested, I'm going to learn from those that are doing it and already and doing it well, and see how they inspire me. And that might not be my boss, big surprise. And so important, number 5, when you share, you're in service of others. So always have that in mind, whatever you put out there. This is not about you, even if it's a story from your personal world. It's absolutely not about you. It's about how is that going to help someone. They need to know what you've been through. If you're comfortable with talking about it, don't do it when you're still processing. Never share things that are kind of still traumatic to you. Keep that for yourself and work through that with qualified professionals, you understand? So this is about when you're at that point of like, yeah, I'm at peace with that, whatever experience it is. I'm at peace with the fact I was made redundant, and it's taken me a while to find a new role. I'm going to talk about that journey and that process, because I'm okay with it now. But don't do it when you're in the middle of it and you're a bit worried, because that's going to kind of not necessarily help you and or others, because they'll pick up on your stress and your trauma from it. Anyway, a little aside from that one, but yeah, when you share, you're in service of others, and that's really going to motivate you when all those doubts kick in and you start to feel like, oh gosh, I don't think I can do this. It's like you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for someone that really needs your help. And that brings all kinds of wonderful things into your world as well. So when you help others, amazing things happen in your career. And I hope this has supported you. I know it's quite a lot to take in, and it might, if you're feeling kind of unsure or overwhelmed, there might be some work to do up front to help get you that real clarity. Because when you share, when you're in the place of kind of, oh, I'm not sure why I'm doing this, but I'm going to give it a go, it's good practice, but it's probably not going to have much of an impact. Whereas when you get really, really clear on where you want this to take you and how fun it's going to be to get there, and you really kind of champion yourself and you start to see yourself in a different way, doing that work up front around confidence and clarity can lead this third stage, which is that kind of credibility and having others see you in the way that you want to be seen, can make it much easier. So may not be the starting point for you, is what I'm saying. And that is what I do when I work with my one-to-one coaching clients, is we always start with that kind of clarity piece. where do you want to take this? Put the messages out there about that up front, and then go into the confidence and self-belief piece together. And then we start to look at, okay, you're ready to show up in that big wide world, say what you have to say, and see what comes from it. If you feel like you need more support with that, then do get in touch. I'm taking on a few more one-to-one clients over the next month. It's a very select program where it's 10 sessions over kind of the roughly 5-month period, and it really is a kind of totally transformational journey. So if you'd be interested in hearing more about that, then give me a shout and we can fix up a little chat to see if that might be right for you. But that is like that kind of level of work and that level of exploration just really does make for long-term change and life-changing things, not just in your job but in your whole personal world, so that you can be there more for your family, you can have your hobbies, you can write your book, you can increase your earnings. All that really, really juicy stuff comes from real commitment to this kind of work. So if you're ready for that and you know it's right for you, then give me a shout. And if you're not, that's absolutely fine as well. I really hope that you've enjoyed this time with me, and yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback, any thoughts you've got, and I'll keep a lookout for you as well on your visibility, and yeah, I'll like and encourage you as well when I see things that you're posting or involved in. All right, take care, have a wonderful day, and speak soon. Bye.